Welcome to Global Movies Recap.
Sonny, a homeless and jobless young man, travels to a new city to find a job. He stays at a motel over the night, and the following day, he goes to the mechanic shop he is called for a job. He meets the manager and tells him he had called one of the workers, Pete, about 2 days ago, and Pete promised to hold the job down for him. Unfortunately, the man says the position has been filled but collects his CV, promising he will call him when there is a vacancy. However, as he leaves, the man throws the paper away. He is homeless, so he goes to a motel and sleeps by the side. That midnight, a man attempts to rob another man, George, who is by his car. George at first attempts to struggle for his life, but the mugger is stronger. As the mugger is about to stab George, Sonny interferes. Together, George and Sonny hit the mugger until he runs away. Sonny notices George is injured. They call the police and the ambulance, and they report the proposed robbery. Just as the police interrogate them, George's wife, Larissa, arrives. She is a pretty young lady compared to George, who is much older. As the police finish their interrogation, George asks Sonny what he does, and Sonny tells him he is homeless and looking for a job. George suggests that Sonny go home with them that night so they can talk over a meal as his appreciation for what he had done for him. Sonny goes home with George as planned. During the meal, Sonny tells George he is a mechanic and a good one at such. He repeats that he can repair anything on a wheel. Coincidentally, George owns a mechanical shop, and his mechanic has just resigned, and he is also injured, so he can't work. He assumes it's fate and asks Sonny if he will stay with them and work for him. Sonny overhears Larissa telling her husband that she isn't comfortable with Sonny in their house, and they do not know anything about Sonny except that he is homeless. George insists that Sonny is a good person and needs help at the shop. The following day, George takes Sonny to the workshop. In the workshop, they see some of George's younger pictures, and George also shows him a car he is trying to build for his wife. As Sonny starts work, Larissa watches him from afar off, and her husband tells her Sonny is good at his duty. For the following days, both Larissa and Sonny share suspicious glances, and when Larissa can no longer take it, he has to stop doing what he does. He asks her what exactly he does, and she explains that he should stop looking at her that way. She walks towards the other side of the workshop, and he comes to meet her there. He asks her why she, a pretty young lady, decides to marry a man as old as George, and she tells him not to talk about her husband like that. She threatens to report him to George, but he suggests that he should tell George himself, and the last thing George will do is to send him away, and he is sure Larissa won't like it when he is away. He tells her that if she could notice he is looking at her in a kind of way, then she is also looking at him the same way. That evening during their dinner, George asks Sonny to help him with a glass and ice from the kitchen. Larissa is also in the kitchen, so he takes the ice and goes to her side. He uses it to rub her body and touches her breasts and thighs. He gets so late in the kitchen that George has to ask why he is late. The following morning, George goes to meet Sonny at the workshop, and Sonny tells him he has gotten a good place to buy a carburetor, and he has also removed the old one. He tells George to visit the store before it gets sold out quickly. While he is away, Larissa comes to the workshop to ask about her husband, and Sonny tells her he won't be back till about 3 hours. She attempts to leave, but he drags her back with his dirty and oily hands. He touches her and rubs her body. He carries her in his hands, and they have intercourse. George arrives with the carburetor. He screams and calls his wife. She watches him happily as he drives the car around. That evening, the family shares joke over a drink, and Larissa leaves the men and goes to her bed. When George sleeps, Sonny covers him with clothes and goes to meet Larissa. They have intercourse again. After the act, Sonny asks Larissa why she married George again. She tells him it was because she was broke and had no direction. She met George at a motel she works as a maid, and he loved her accent when he brought her home. It seems like a dream come true. Sonny also tells her about how he grew up from foster home to foster home, and he lived a miserable life. The next day, George calls Sonny. He takes him to an empty land that seems like a dump. He tells him that in a month, the government will build a road along that village, and the dump site will become a hot ground, so he has bought the place, and he plans to build a motor play park to build several recreational facilities. Larissa also follows Sonny to the location when George isn't around. She tells Sonny that the park can be a dream come true for them and all they have to do is kill George. Sonny isn't comfortable with the idea. That day, Larissa asks her husband when the park will be built, and he tells her in 8 months at most. They play around the house, and Sonny gets jealous. That night, He goes to her and asks her why she is jumping around with George and says he will soon stop being her husband. They make out that night. The following day, Sonny and Larissa meet at a motel, where they make out and plan how to execute George. They decide they will make it look like an accident. George starts building his park as planned while his wife and Sonny continue their relationship. One day, Sonny calls Larissa to the workshop, where he describes what he will make George's accident look like and tells her she will be the one to pull the leveler so a tractor can fall on George. As planned, she drops the leveler, and the tractor falls on George's head and Sonny's hands. Some blood splashes on her shoes, but she disposes of it on her way and goes to the supermarket. Detective Crawford meets with her when she returns and tells her of her husband's death. Crawford, however, thinks it's not an accident, and the fact that Larissa wore sneakers on her dress to the supermarket gave her away. The following day, Sonny and Larissa find the shoe she disposed of and burned it. They decide to pretend for a while so no one will suspect them. Crawford visits to investigate. He didn't get anything from Sonny, so he tells him he might invite him for more questioning. They bury George's body, and Larissa continues building the park. One night while Larissa and Sonny are together, Larissa receives a call from Crawford. He tells her he has been trying to reach Sonny. Sonny calls Crawford back, and Crawford asks him to visit the station the next day. Sonny visits, and Crawford shows him proof of how he could have dropped the tractor twice on George to ensure he dies. He denies all the accusations, and as he leaves, the police decide to question Larissa. He returns home and tells Larissa that night. Crawford also calls Larissa to ask her to visit. Before they go to bed, Larissa tells Sonny she is pregnant with his baby. Before Larissa wakes the following day, Sonny goes to the police station and confesses that he killed George, and Larissa isn't in on it. Larissa meets a letter as she wakes. In the letter, Sonny tells her the police won't let go of George's death, and he doesn't want them to find out she is involved so his child won't get trained by the states like him. He advises her to sell the land and travel to a place where no one knows her, and she can train their child there. Some years later, Sonny remains in prison, where he receives letters and pictures of how their baby is doing from Larissa. On the other hand, Larissa retains the park. She requests that her worker, Dinah, bring her baby's picture. And it turns out she is dating the man that attacked George the night Sonny met George. She takes Dinah's baby's picture, tears off Dinah's face and sends it to Sonny with a letter. On Sonny's execution day, he reads the last letter from Larissa happily before going for his execution.
Thanks a lot for watching, guys. If you liked this video, please consider subscribing to our channel. I will be back with another interesting movie recap. Until then, take care.